The dustpan collaboration I did with this old Tony has become my most viewed series on YouTube. I demonstrated the rollation technique in the first video, and that caught the attention of a lot of people. Apparently, this technique is not widely known. In fact, I did a search on YouTube and nothing popped up relating to layout techniques. While rollation is not the only game in town, it works very well for patterning certain shapes, and this time I'll show a couple more applications of the process. I'm going to use rollation to pattern two cones. Both are truncated, meaning the top is sliced off. One is regular and one is offset. So the first step is cutting two round discs. I'm going to be using 1/8 inch thick masonite. This has a white surface, but any material would work. And I'm going to cut one disc that's 7 inches in diameter and one disc that's 3.5 inches in diameter. And when I space these 3 inches apart, it will create a cone with about a 60-degree angle on it. So to make a 7-inch diameter circle, of course I need to set my compass to 3.5 inches. So that's set. And you see I have center lines drawn for both circles. So let's draw our 7-inch circle. Now for the 3.5 inch circle, I need to set the compass for 1 3/4 inches. So that's 1 3/4 inches right there. And there's our 3.5 inch circle. So I'll use a jigsaw to cut these out. So these are the two discs, and if I space these 3 inches apart, it will give us a cone with just about a 60-degree angle on the sides. So I'll sand these edges to smooth them up, and I'll make a spacer block to hold these the right distance apart. So I've cleaned up the edges of these discs and drilled the center hole. Now I'm going to use a wooden dowel to space these 3 inches apart. So I need to put a hole in the dowel for the screw. So I want to get this located pretty accurately, so everything will be concentric. So I'll use a scale to find the center point of this. It's 1.5 inch diameter, so the radius is 3/4 inch. So I'll put marks on this from both directions, and then I'll drill a small pilot hole. And I'll do the same on the other side. So I'll measure 3/4 inch from two directions, and then I'll drill the pilot hole. And now I can use drywall screws to hold all the parts together. So I'm using a spacer on the drywall screws. That will give me a handle that might be handy in the next step. So I'll drive the screw into the dowel, and I'll put the other disc on the other side. I want to align these pretty carefully. So here's how the rollation process works. If I put this on a flat surface and roll it, the edges of these discs are described in a precise arc, and I can use that to make a pattern so I can duplicate this truncated cone shape exactly. I put a piece of white paper on my table, and I'm going to start the layout. I made a line an arbitrary distance away from the edge, and I put notches in both discs, so I'm going to align the notch with this straight line, and that's where my layout will begin. The trick to make this work properly is the discs have to roll without sliding, so I'm putting steady pressure down and using a pencil to mark against the edge of the disc as I go. Then I'll make marks where those notches touch the paper. Now using a straight edge, I'm going to draw a line between those marks. And this is the pattern to make our truncated cone. So there's our pattern. I'll transfer this to a piece of metal and cut it out. I've used ink to darken the edge of my pattern to make it easier to see, and I've drawn a line an inch away from the edge of the metal blank. I want to add an inch of extra metal on here to give me some leverage when it comes time to form this part. So I'm going to lay this out right on that 1-inch line, clamp it in place, and then I'll use a felt tip marker to mark the cut line. These edges may look like they're parallel, but they're not. They're close to it, but not quite parallel. Okay, I'm ready to cut this out now, and I'm using a jigsaw with a regular wood cutting blade. I'll deburr this edge, and then I'll show you the process for bending it into a cone shape. I'm going to bend the cone freehand, but I need a fixture to hold the edge. So here's how I'll do that. I've clamped sort of a stop block to the edge of my bench, so I'll move the metal up until it touches that stop block. Then I've made 2 spacers slightly thicker than the metal I'm bending. I'll put those into place. And then this is the bar that will hold the edge of the metal down as I'm bending it. So I'll get that clamped into place. So all I need to do to make the bend is to slide the metal up until it touches the stop, and then just lift up on the edge of the metal. Now I can bend it slowly and check my fit repeatedly and bend it until I get the fit I want. So we're getting off to a good start. So far, so good. So I've bent it a little bit too much, and a very easy way to open up the bend is to place the bend that's too tight on the table and just press out on both sides. And that way I can open it up. So it's fitting pretty well from about here to about here. Let's check the inner part of this. I can see it needs a little more bend right here. I'm going to use another fixture to help me get the bend there. This is just a piece of tubing about the right diameter to give me that tight bend. So that's coming along nicely. Let's start working on the other end now. So I'll push this in my bending fixture until it bottoms out on the stop and just start lifting this up. So I'll put my fixture down flat on the table, and then I can really check how this fits. So I need to overlap these edges a little bit, but when I do, the fit around the small end is really quite nice. Let's take a look at the big end. And again, once I overlap these edges a tiny bit, it really has a nice fit. So now I'm ready to describe these edges, and I'll tack weld them together. So I'll pull this up nice and snug around the form, and I'll use masking tape to hold the overlap in the proper position. And then with the scriber, I'll scribe that edge. So the fit up is excellent. So I have this aligned and clamped into place. I'm going to put some tack welds on this. So the alignment and fit up looks great. I'm going to go ahead and finish weld this now. So I'm very happy with the fit up here. I'm going to fusion weld the inside just to give it a little bit more strength. I'm going to sand this smooth now. I'll put a little soap on the metal as a lubricant, and then I'll start with 120 grit paper. And then I'll finish it with 320 grit on an orbital sander. And to give it a little bit finer surface, I'll go over it with a Scotch-Brite pad. So I've done the cleanup and final adjusting of this part, and it's fitting the form absolutely beautifully. Take a look at that nice tight fit on the top circle, and I'll flip this over, and you can see there's a very, very nice fit on the bottom. So this one went pretty well. Now let's use the rollation process for a shape that's a little more challenging. This time I'm using the same discs and the same spacer, but I've set them up so they're flush on one edge. And this does increase the level of difficulty. So as this rolls on a flat surface, it goes through quite a gyration. So it's a bit challenging to follow the edge with a pencil to make the pattern, but I think we will make a nice pattern, and I think we'll make a great part. So let's do the layout for the offset cone now. I've drawn a line 1 inch from the edge of the paper. That'll give us that extra piece we need for leverage. And each of these discs has a notch right on the center lines. So I'm going to carefully align the notches on both discs right on that line. And I need to be very careful not to allow this to slide on the paper as I'm doing the layout. So I'll start by putting pressure down on the hub, and I'll roll the disc toward me a little bit and make marks on both sides of both discs. I'll grab this a little bit higher up and roll it a little bit farther. Again, I'm being very careful not to allow the disc to slide on the paper. Get a better grip on this. Roll it a little bit more. And because it's so difficult to hold these discs without slipping on the paper, I'm only going to go to the center line. So as soon as those center notches touch the paper, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to make a mark, so that's the center line of our pattern. Now I'll use a straight edge and connect these marks. And what I can do now is to cut one side to the center and then fold this over a mark along its edge to cut the other side. So to get that fold in just the right spot, I'm going to bring it over to the edge of the table and press the paper against the edge of the table. That'll give me a sharp bend in just the right spot. Then we'll fold it all the way over and trace around the edge with a pencil. And that will give us the cut line we need for the other side of the pattern. Now we'll cut the inside. So there's the pattern for the offset cone. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bend this one up now. So it's fitting reasonably well. I think the next step is to tack weld this joint together and do the final fitting after that. So I'll get this clamped into place and put some tack welds on it. So the fit up looks excellent. I'm going to go ahead and finish weld this joint. So let's try this on the fixture one last time. Looks like it needs a little more bend right here. So I'll take it over to the tube and press down on both sides. Now we'll check the fit again. And I think that's dialed in perfectly. It has a very nice fit along the top edge. I'll flip this over, and it has an excellent fit on the bottom edge. I'm very happy with how this cone has formed up. And of course, there are many other shapes that can be patterned this way. So that's an overview of the rollation process. I'm thinking of making another video on the subject, making transitions between circles, ovals, and rectangles. Let me know in the comments if you'd find that interesting. My viewers are very important to me, and I do my best to answer all questions posted in the comments. This is my last video for 2020, and I want to sincerely thank all my viewers for making this my best year ever. If you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do it now. I'll see you next time.